But another coach that is tearing up the NBA brings us to our Wrap It Up segment. And that is the coach for Team LeBron in this week's upcoming NBA All-Star game, Mr. Dwayne Casey. So his Toronto Raptors, and I'm citing this from Mr. Josh Lewenberg. Shout out to him. He's one of the rare Raptors beat guys that I definitely rep and I think does a really good job covering the team. But he says, sorry, go on.
I will say about the Raptors beat writers, there are a couple of really good ones.
For sure. No, I totally agree with that. There are a couple of good ones for sure. I definitely think a lot of the Raptors beat guys should get a lot more time because I think they would add more nuance to the mainstream. And by mainstream, I'm tiptoeing around how I say this for sure. But right. In terms of the mainstream television networks, I'll say, I feel like the beat guys would add a different level of Insight. Yes. Thank you, Webby, for helping me out there and making me step into shit. Right? Just because it's a different thing. Because what happens is most of the networks just go to the guys who are basically team employees. So you're only going to really get one side of the story, if that makes sense.
It's a shame. It's really a shame.
But yes, Mr. Lewenberg says, for the first time in franchise history, the Raptors will go into the All-Star break as the 1 seed. They're riding a season-long 7-game win streak, winning 6 of them by 15-plus points, and are 41-16, their best pre-All-Star record in team history. Webby, the question, what do you make of the Raps' first half, my dude?
Well, what else can you make of it other than it's been a historic first half of the franchise?
So does it change your thoughts on what will happen in the second half and more importantly the playoffs?
I mean, I can't see anything other than an injury to DeMar or Kyle that would derail what they're doing right now. And I mean, even if you lost a Siakam or a Pirtle or a Van Vliet, it seems to be next man up for this bench unit in the second, in the second unit here.
You're totally right here. There's some great stats about the reserve lineup. Freddie Van Vliet, DeLon Wright, Miles, Siakam, and Pirtle. They're outscoring opponents by 33 points per 100% possessions, which is the best net rating of any 5-man unit that's played at least 100 minutes together in the NBA. Like that is.
I saw some of the other units that they were compared to, and you're like, whoa.
That is really, really good. And, the Raptors bench has done a really good job. And, what happens in this, like going back to almost how this team is discussed, what happens a lot is a lot of the focus is only on the Toronto Raptors, right? And so we see this, and like there's numbers to back it up that the Raptors bench is really, really good. But just for me pointing out that the Cavs bench, which now includes Clarkson, Hood, Korver, Nance, and Jeff Green, plus whoever doesn't start when Kevin Love comes back, which I keep thinking that people forget the fact that Kevin Love is also coming back. With
a broken hand, though,
True, for sure. But how do you think the Cavs bench stacks up against the Raptors bench?
I think that the Cavs bench is now one of their strong points. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that unlike the Raptors bench, they haven't had a half a season to really find their groove.
Yeah.
And find really what works. Because, I mean, your second unit is more than just another set of 5 guys. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we've seen from the Raptors. It's kind of like how you can mix in those 6, 7 other guys to work in with some of your starting 5 as you kind of stagger when your bench comes in and gives rest to your starters. So finding that kind of groove with how, that kind of timing plays out through a game and who you can really play well with and the best units that you can get going. Mm-hmm. I think that takes a little bit of time to, like I say, get that needle into that groove. The Raptors have had, like I say, a full half a season to figure that out.
So true. And even if you think about it, longer than that, right? Because a lot of those guys played together in 905, right? So you're totally right there. The continuity factor that the Raptors have is definitely positive that they would have over the Cavs bench that's newly formed. The one thing I want to bring up, though, and kind of double down on something you just said, come playoff time, and even more towards the second half of the season when we get down to the nitty-gritty here, your bench is a 5-man unit. Like, how much is that going to really matter going forward, right? I think what you just said about, figuring out, okay, well, what pieces fit where alongside your starters in certain lineups, that's going to be really key going forward, right? And I think that'll be an interesting thing to see because one thing I keep noticing, right? Like every time I see Siakam step on the floor, I'm like, man, this guy should be taking a lot more Serge Ibaka's minutes. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe, it's just because we're seeing him in spurts and seeing him with that 5-man unit and the way that they all play in terms of a collective defensive unit and getting steals and starting the break off of their defense. Maybe that fits Siakam's skill set more than if he was with the starters. But I don't know. I can't help but think just what that guy does at both ends of the floor and the energy he brings. I'd love to see him get more minutes going forward.
Well, what they've done such a great job of with the Raptors is that, you almost need Ibaka there at the beginning. And like, you don't want to rock that boat too much when it comes to how well this bench and this kind of formula that Dwayne Casey has going on with this roster right now. Yeah. So, like, yeah, sure, Siakam you might think is outplaying Ibaka, but if you shake that boat up too much, it could all come crashing down, because then now you've got to do something because you're not just going to replace Ibaka's minutes with Siakam's minutes and vice versa, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It would throw everything askew.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, right? And we keep talking about it, just what happens come playoff time, Do you just go with the hot hand if that's DeLon or Fred or Siakam, right? So it'll be super interesting to see how that goes, how that plays out going forward into the playoffs. But the other thing that's super interesting to me, and this is my plea to Raptor fans, right? Stop caring about whether the U.S. media talks about the Raptors. Like, I don't get why.
This is my least favorite thing that happens with the Raptors every year.
I just don't get it. I just don't get why you care so much. And I'm going to double down on that and say something. And again, tiptoe and be very careful about how I say this. But shouldn't you care a lot more as a Raptor fan about how your media here in Canada discusses your team and discusses the NBA? Like, I would think that should be way more of your focus than what Shaq has to say or what the TNT panel are saying about the Toronto Raptors. Like, shouldn't you really care a lot more about what's going on here? Because, and the reason I ask that, Webby, and tell me if I'm wrong here, because I think that we're really talking about two different things. Because I saw a clip today, which, have you heard the Shaq clip today?
Yeah, I saw it today.
Right? So Shaq basically said that he doesn't believe in the Raptors because of Kyle Lowry's resume in the playoffs, right? That's essentially, am I like misquoting him there? That's essentially what he's saying?
I believe he compared it to a boxer who looks good in the gym but doesn't have it in the ring.
Right? So Shaq says that, and then I see people on Twitter then going at Shaq and saying, oh, he doesn't watch games, and it's just like, hold on a second here. Which side is it? You want to have Americans talking about your team, or you want to have Americans say things about your team that you agree with, right? Because those are two different things. Because automatically if Stephen A. Smith or if someone else says something bad about the Raptors, then automatically everyone starts piling on them for hating the Raptors and they get no respect, right? Do you see what I mean in terms of how it's like a no-win? Like, American media can't win. You talk about the Raptors, but they say negative things, then they're hating on the Raptors. But if they don't talk about the Raptors, it's, all the talks about Boston and Cleveland. Like, pick one. But I say, no, go on.
Then in Canada, all you get is either no Raptors talk or only positive Raptor talk.
Exactly, right?
There's no pushback against, like maybe the Raptors don't have what it takes to get over the LeBron James hump, Instead, every year it's this is the best team of all time and they should be celebrated, and by golly, this is the year that they're going to do it. And you don't really have any kind of pushback when it comes to Raptors coverage in Canada. So when finally they do get mentioned down in the States, and it is coming from a negative place or somebody has criticism, it's, they don't really know this team, and it's crazy. And you're absolutely right. Raptors fans, when it comes to this inferiority complex, they want to suck and blow. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to be talked about in the States, but only in a positive light.
Totally. And I'm sure like most basketball fans, I have I want to say 2 or 3 different group text combos that are basketball heavy, right? And one of them is just painting me straight as a Raptors hater. And it's funny because I get that on Twitter too all the time. And my whole point to them is just always, listen, just because I don't subscribe to the Raptors groupthink of like, you know, whatever happens or everything has to be positive because that's all we hear every day from watching Raptors broadcasts. Like, just because I don't subscribe to that doesn't mean I'm a Raptors hater. Doesn't mean I don't want the Raptors to succeed. Like, heck, the Raptors succeeding and winning an NBA championship, I'm a Raptor fan. I like the Raptors. You know what? I also work in the sports industry. Yeah. So the Raptors making the NBA Finals is good for business. Like, there's no reason why I would want the Raptors to not succeed. But just because, you know, so Shaq says that Kyle Lowry is not a playoff performer, everyone crushes him, right? If I say last week I got a lot of flack, Webby, and side note, I put up our Raptors convos in like separate little like 10-minute bites up on YouTube. And like, there's over like 500 people like listening to that on YouTube right now. Like, it's actually doing really well, which is kind of crazy. It's so cool, right? It's fun, and because it's engaging as well, right? And that's what this podcast is about, because we want to engage and like take in different people's points of view, because it makes you think in a different way as well, right? And that happens to me. And so I'm bringing this up because last week we were talking about, and I was catching some flack for this, I was just reminding people that last year in the playoffs when the Raptors lost, okay, I didn't make this up. Kyle and DeMar said the biggest difference was LeBron James. They had LeBron James and we didn't. Like, I didn't say that. They did. I didn't forget that. So that's never left me because, well, what's changed? The Cavs still have LeBron James. And if anything, like, now his supporting cast might be more well-rounded. It might not be better, top-heavy better, but the supporting cast might be more well-rounded. And now the Raptors, it's not like they got any better in terms of player for player. Like, if you're telling me that OG and Fred VanVleet and DeLon Wright, they're going to make up the difference because last year you told me the difference was LeBron James. Hey, that's what you think. Cool. More power to you. All I'm saying is, and I'm agreeing with Shaq, I got to see it in the playoffs first before I fall for this, because last year I was told that this is the best Raptors team ever and that we want to see the Cavs in the second round. We want to see them early because Kevin Love was hurt and he might not be healthy enough by the time we play them, right? Like, we heard this story last year before. I'm just bringing up another point. That doesn't make me a Raptors hater. It's just an opinion. That's all I'm saying.
There you go. No, you're absolutely right.
And again,
but what's funny though, Shelly, is that this isn't a Raptors specific problem.
True.
I find that most NBA franchises up there, the fan bases get their panties in a bunch as soon as you say something just a little bit critical of their team.
It's so true.
You know, even Sixers Twitter is like this. It's true. Celtics Twitter is like this.
It's true. It's true. All I'm saying is, and I'm encouraging people to watch more Cavs games, because you might not know that Rodney Hood is that good of a player. You might not know that Jordan Clarkson is that good of a player. I'm just putting those things out there for you to consume because, hey, I love what VanVleet and DeLon Wright and Siakam and all these guys are doing. I think it's great. Remember, I'm the one that's saying we should be focusing more on the development of those guys, because going forward, and especially next year when a guy named LeBron James might not even be in the Eastern Conference, the development of Fred and DeLon and Siakam and OG, that could be key next year for the moves that the Raptors make, you know, in terms of making it to the NBA Finals. So the future is bright in Toronto. Everything's good. Enjoy your squad. But revel in the fact that everyone's betting on LeBron again, right? Like, revel in that. Like, everyone says they like being the underdog, but they don't really like being the underdog, right?
Unless you're the Eagles.
Hey, fly, Eagles, fly.